It seems to be the end. Everyone thinks I'm crazy. All my relatives, friends, acquaintances think that I have lost my mind, and I'm very afraid that this is the case. But suddenly someone else is faced with the same thing as me. Suddenly I am not alone and someone knows what to do. How to get rid of this nightmare that my life has become. I hope that my story will help me find people who know how to find salvation for me. So, I think it's better if I tell everything from the beginning. My name is Andre. I'm 29 years old and I'm afraid of the tooth fairy. Yes, exactly the one that comes to pick up fallen milk teeth from under the pillows of children and leaves them money. Only this creature once came to me and since then I have been cursing that day. About half a year ago, I was drinking at a bar. Yes, I will not hide. I have such weaknesses. I don't remember what exactly happened there, but as a result, I instantly thought. And I came home that evening with a broken nose and loose teeth. As a result, one of them fell out and I, wanting to quickly fall into bed and pass out, put it on the sink in the bathroom. Yes, I know that this sounds like crazy nonsense, but in the morning I did not find a tooth at this place. There was a real bill of $5,000. To be honest, I lived then, to put it mildly, not rich. He worked part-time where he had to, either at a construction site with fellow men, or unloading products in supermarkets. So, to say that I was fucked up when I saw 5,000 lying on my mirror is to say nothing. I then stole about 5 minutes trying to remember where I could get them yesterday. Stole something? No, although I am not the most decent person, I would not go for theft. There was only one, albeit insane, explanation for this. When I thought about the tooth fairy, that it was she who exchanged my tooth knocked out in a bar for money, I even laughed at myself. Well, am I a small child or a complete idiot to agree with such an explanation? In general, having very good money on hand, I did not begin to think for a long time about their origin in my house and happily went to spend it. For the next week, I couldn't get the incident out of my head. In the end, I explained the appearance of money in my head by the fact that when I got drunk, I simply forgot where I got it. But after that fight in the bar, I still had 2 teeth loose. Eventually they fell out and I just couldn't help but check it out again. I thought that this was most likely nonsense. That in the morning I would not see money, but only my teeth lying on the table. But I couldn't help but test my theory. As you can already guess, the miracle happened for the second time. In the morning I found $10,000 on the table. At first, I could not believe my eyes for a long time. I examined the banknotes, checked for authenticity. The real money came from nowhere, and the teeth are gone. Who brought them? I checked all the windows and doors. Everything was locked. This time, there was one explanation for what happened. My crazy theory was confirmed. I perceived it as a miracle, as a gift that I received. If only I knew what this gift would turn into and where it would lead me. A few days after the incident, I began to have these dreams. Dreams in which a fairy appeared. She was a petite, thin girl who looked to be barely 18. She appeared before me in a snow-white dress that was too long for her height and reached the floor. She had a pink bag on her shoulder. It was very large and filled with something. Her long and blonde hair shimmered very beautifully in the sunlight. She was beautiful and affable, and smiled so affectionately, sometimes widely, showing her snow-white teeth. And the most incredible thing about her were her wings. Like a butterfly or some insect, they shone and shimmered with all the colors of the rainbow. When I was able to tear myself away from her unearthly beauty, I realized that I was holding something in my hands. They were teeth. A bunch of bloody teeth of different colors and shapes. Some even had bits of leather on them. When I saw them, I screamed and dropped them all to the ground. I was shocked, but the little fairy burst into ringing laughter, covering her mouth with a small and neat hand. Stopping laughing, she stared at me with her big eyes, as if waiting for something. I was confused, but I think I understood what she wants. With trembling hands, I began to collect teeth from the ground, and when I picked up about 10 pieces, I extended them towards the girl. Her eyes lit up, and she herself smiled widely and took my teeth. She tossed them into her bag. Then I went a little closer and saw that the whole bag was filled with them. I got dizzy. When I looked at the fairy again, she was already holding out her hand to me, in which she held a pile of money. I opened my mouth in surprise. I had never seen so much money as this girl was holding. In a moment I woke up. I had mixed feelings about sleep. Does this fairy girl come to me at night and change my teeth for money? She was beautiful and evoked feelings of calm and admiration, but this bunch of bloody teeth really scared me. That's still a spectacle. When I remembered what they looked like, I involuntarily thought about the fact that they had been pulled out from someone. Since then, the Tooth Fairy has visited my dreams almost every night, and these were not the most pleasant dreams. Each time she became more demanding and angry. After all, now I came to her with nothing. She wanted teeth. She tapped her foot and looked at me with eyes full of anger and resentment. But there were some things in these dreams that frightened me even more. Black silhouette. At first it was far away, near the horizon, but each time it got closer and I realized more and more. It is huge. Every day I thought more and more about leaving her a tooth again. After all, it was a good way to get money. And so, I bought tongs and stood in the bathroom at the mirror. I couldn't make up my mind for a long time. For some reason, the image of a little tooth fairy and her disappointed eyes that looked straight into my soul appeared before my eyes. I nevertheless made up my mind, brought the tongs to the tooth and tried to pull. Oh my God, how excruciatingly painful. At first I was still in order, endured pain, but I did not dare to pull sharply. I pulled slowly. My heart was beating like crazy. My hands were shaking. After a couple of minutes, as I was pulling a tooth, I felt a warm trickle of blood flowing down my arm. I began to feel my tooth separating from my gums. How each nerve slowly comes off and how the edges of the tooth scratch the gum. And there was more and more blood. It filled my mouth and I had to spit it into the sink. I pulled everything. He endured unbearable pain and pulled. In the end, I could not stand it and fell to my knees. I cried, screamed, but continued to pull. It lasted about 30 minutes, maybe more, when I finally felt the last nerve come off the tooth and I was able to hold it in forceps. The blood did not stop for a long time, and I could not calm down for a long time, but deep down, I was glad that today I would not come to the Tooth Fairy empty-handed. I left the tooth under my pillow, as small children do, and went to bed. That night I dreamed of the fairy again, and I really held my pulled tooth in my hands. She was extremely happy. Her smile made me rejoice too. It seems that all those efforts and pain were not in vain, but on the contrary, I felt that I did everything right. I didn't have a dream for about 2 weeks, but the pain in the place where my pulled tooth once was reminded me of everything that was. I wondered how I could get money from the Tooth Fairy without losing my teeth. Then I remembered that I know a dentist, and he certainly could provide me with the teeth of his client. Then I turned to him. I had to lie something about the purpose for which I need teeth. And so, a week later, I took about 5 teeth from him. Some of them were large, indigenous, and some were small, dairy. I still put them on the table and went to bed. At that time, I was inspired by this idea of earning money, and I'd already fantasized what kind of money I could have if I had even more teeth for the little fairy. Unfortunately, my dreams were not destined to come true. That night I again dreamed of a fairy girl. She looked at me with disgust. I don't know why, but I felt so hurt that I fell to my knees and started crying. I remember the disappointment that was in her eyes and it made me feel miserable. When I looked up at the fairy again, she was holding tongs in her hands. They were dripping blood. At that moment, I felt fear, but the girl, on the contrary, broke into an ominous smile. Then my eyes fell on something that was behind her, that black silhouette, and it was already much closer than before. I woke up with a cold sweat on my face. I was shaking all over. I didn't recognize myself. What is this girl doing to me? The realization came to me. There is no choice. She needs my teeth. I did not want to relieve this pain, lose a tooth, and all this because of some capricious little dream girl and $5,000. I firmly decided that I would not do this anymore. Too bad it didn't last long for me. The fairy decided to keep up with me. I dreamed about her every night. But now she spoke to me. More precisely, she tried to force her to bring a new tooth. You will bring me a new tooth. You will bring me a new tooth. You cannot escape this. She said. Every night I listened to 1,000 threats against me, and it caused me to panic. And the worst thing was that something, big and frightening, was getting closer and closer, and no matter how much I looked, I could not understand what it was. But if the fairy came to me only in dreams. A week after the unsuccessful attempt to give her someone else's teeth, I saw the girl's reflection in my mirror. I was frightened and out of the blue. Also, the tongs that I put away in the closet with the rest of the tools that I have at home constantly appeared in the bathroom on the mirror. All this drove me crazy. The little fairy did not let me rest for a day. The last straw was when I saw her on my bed. Waking up at night, I saw the girl sitting on my feet and staring at me, holding the same tongs in her hands. I then screamed and fell off the bed, and when I got up, she was gone. That night, I decided that I'd rather pull out another tooth myself and be able to rest for a couple of weeks than she did. The minutes I spent pulling my own tooth felt like an eternity. My whole mouth hurt, and I sat and sobbed on the floor, covered in blood. Is there really no way out? Am I supposed to give all my teeth to this insufferable girl so that she gets behind me? I calmed down and tried to sleep again. I had a dream again. The fairy was pleased, but there was no black essence. Then I enjoyed the girl's smile, inexplicable happiness, and relief. But the moments when I was happy now in my life did not last long. The rest of the time I walked around nervous. I didn't want to work, meet friends. I didn't even want to eat. At some point, I caught myself thinking that only the smile of the tooth fairy gave me joy, and all my thoughts were only about how great it would be to please her again. Then I kind of went crazy, and this is not an exaggeration. During that period I had something like insanity. For 2 days I did not leave the house, practically did not drink or eat. I was engaged in pulling out my teeth for the adored tooth fairy. Now I understand what a psycho was. Because of this girl, I naturally went crazy, and when I passed out on the bathroom floor, I had another dream. The little fairy was just delighted. I had about 5 teeth in my hands. I looked with horror at them and at the clotted blood. But the fairy was happy, and that meant that I was happy too. In the morning I woke up in pain and was horrified to realize what I had become. I was covered in blood, and next to me was a stack of mud. On the same day I threw away those rowing tongs. My act greatly angered the fairy. This time she did not give me time to rest, and that same night she again demanded teeth. This time I did not obey her, and it was my mistake. That night I woke up from the fact that someone was trying to open my mouth. It was a fairy. She sat on me and held tongs in her hands. I already wanted to throw it aside, but I saw that creature, that very huge creature that I saw in my dreams. It was right in front of my bed and took up almost the entire room. I was able to throw the girl aside and thereby distract that creature. As quickly as possible, I ran out of the room and locked myself in the bathroom. And by the time I finish writing this message, that creature has been knocking on the door for several minutes, and I'm afraid that soon it will not stand.